Hi, my name's Rob Norman. Until December 2017, I was the Global Chief Digital Officer of Group M as part of WPP. I lived in New York, but I worked around the world, and it was a great privilege to do that. Since then, I've been doing some consulting, and I sit on the boards of a number of companies, some small, some a little bigger, but all united by their enthusiasm to make the world of communications better and also to become great businesses that look after their people and look after their customers. It's great to be involved with them and great to have a second act. I wanted to talk today about what I think helped me get to my first act. And to put it most simply, it was that I discovered that if I went to work interested, the odds were that my day would be interesting. Now, it's true that when I started in advertising, there was no one rushing around to say, I wonder what we can give Rob to occupy his day that will be really inspiring and uplifting and move him through our system to a management position. I don't think that conversation was ever had. Instead, some well-meaning people had some pretty unpleasant tasks to do, unpleasant in the terms of they were boring and repetitive rather than dangerous in any way. And clearly, the new kid in the office was the person to give those tasks to. I discovered that these tasks had something in common. And what they had in common was this. Anyone felt able to interrupt you whilst you were doing them, and that every time you were interrupted, it added more than the time of the interruption to the time it took to complete the task. So the solution I found from this was simply to come to work really early in the morning. And if I started at 7 o'clock, by the time everyone else got in, at 9 o'clock, the task was done, and I was able to get something more interesting to do. And I carried on doing this for the first 2 or 3 years of my career until I got to a point when people actually began to listen to what I had to say. Making that task interesting was a real challenge. It was pretty mechanical and pretty straightforward, but it made me realize right from the beginning that if I could put the task in context, and it was competitive analysis involving cutting ads out of newspapers, that somehow I could teach myself about the business I worked in. And in that particular example, I was able to understand the difference about how media is priced between local and regional newspapers, how size and space related to pricing, and also what the competitive landscape of this particular brand was. It may sound super prosaic to you, but it was more interesting when thought about in that way, rather than just by thought out, I have to cut ads out of a piece of paper. By the way, the worst day of my months was a Tuesday morning after a bank holiday, because I had to collect all of the papers from Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and do that job for those 3 days, plus the Tuesday that I was doing it on. The people that were most interesting were the people that were curious that I worked with. And they were curious because they always found something interesting in the task at hand that exceeded the pure, simple aspects of what they were doing. And it became clear to me after a while that there was a coalition between those people in the business who are curious. Not just the people who are curious in the media department, but the people who had curiosity in planning, the people who had curiosity in the development of creativity, and people in account management too. And it occurred to me really fairly soon that the best teams and the times that we performed best together was when that group of people with shared curiosity got together to both define a problem, which was a very important aspect of what we did, and then to go about solving the problem. And ever since then, the idea of coalitions of the curious in business has been one that's fascinated to me and appealed to me. In the latter years of my career, it became clear that the coalition of the curious was even more valuable. When people moved in the digital world from one buzzword to another buzzword, to one new discipline to another new discipline, the two words that were lost to me that were most valuable in my growing up in the business were curiosity and context. And people just drank from the proverbial fire hose, and all of the virtue came in knowing what the next new thing was. And almost none of it came from being curious about the context of how they fitted in to resolve a business problem for the agency, and more important, a business problem for the client, and most important, what it was like in terms of its impact on the consumer experience. And my sense is, and my advice to people coming into the business now, is to get that level of interest generated really early and to be super curious about what's going on around you, about what matters to your clients, what matters to your consumers, and what matters to your colleagues. And if you can leverage that curiosity and find your fellow travelers in the pursuit of the unusual and the pursuit of doing things in a better way, you'll be happy. As a consequence, the thing you should always be suspicious of is when something that's really important is given as a task to one person. In about 2013, I wrote an article for an Indian publication, and it was called A Eulogy for a Job Title. And the job title was Chief Digital Officer. And my job title was Chief Digital Officer. And the point of my article said, here we are in 2013. How long do we have to wait until we don't talk about chief digital officers anymore, because the practice of digital marketing and its underlying technologies will be second nature and commonplace for all of us, and we will have accepted that unless you had a high degree of competence in matters of digital marketing, you couldn't be a chief anything officer in the communications business. So the idea of the eulogy was that there would be a time, and the time I called was January 2018, when the need for chief digital officers would be no more. Now, I don't know if we actually got there by 2018, but that explains my retirement in December 2017, because I could hardly carry on being a chief digital officer when I'd already written the eulogy for the title. I feel the same about chief transformation officers. The idea of transformation being someone's job sounds implausible and impractical to me. I know many people have that title and many of them are good. But the ones that are the best are the ones that use the title of Chief Transformation Officer to gather a coalition of the curious, people that are curious about how change occurs, how change can be cascaded through the business, and how change can be executed to benefit all of the stakeholders in the business, and they build coalitions. And chief transformation officers, again, should be attempting to make themselves redundant sooner rather than later. The last of these chief officers that I wanted to touch on today is the idea of chief diversity officers. It's clearly a clear and present moment for all of us in business, all of us in life, and just locally, all of us in the advertising and marketing business. I do believe that many companies, with the appointment of chief diversity officers now several years ago, have made some strides. But I think we all know and all understand from recent events in the United States, now replicated around the world, that all of those that thought we were doing the right thing may have been virtue signaling and making worthy decisions rather than effective decisions. And we have to address a systemic view of racism, of discrimination. We have to address unconscious bias, and we have to listen. We have to give people the chance to express themselves fully within the workplace and give them time and opportunity to express themselves more widely in civil activism and simple things like the time and the encouragement to vote in local and national elections. It's very important for our society, perhaps the most important thing in our society, alongside the eradication of poverty, that we create genuine equality in the workplace, genuine equality of opportunity to enter businesses, genuine equality and the opportunity to progress through businesses, genuine feeling that everyone is equal, that there is no signaling created by the color of someone's skin, and that we build businesses that represent the tapestry of the populations we live in. So for our chief diversity officers, please find the coalition of the curious, the coalition of the willing, the people that are interested, that will make the process interesting and effective and put equality at the heart of our business to build on the curiosity we've created and the transformation we've delivered in so many other ways that we work. I wish everyone safety, I wish them good health, I wish them inclusion, and I wish them fairness. Thank you very much.